Hello everyone, thanks for tuning in today. Before we get started, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell icon so you don't miss any updates. Now, let's dive into a story that's stirring the nation. Here's what's happening. Recently, Sowore, an activist who's well known in Nigerian political spaces, announced that there will be a protest demanding the unconditional release of Nnamdi Kanu. He says there's no going back on this protest. In his words, the march is not just about Kanu's freedom but about upholding court orders, justice and equality before the law. On the other side, the Nigeria police force and other security agencies have already warned against the protest, especially around the presidential villa and other key government areas. They've invoked court orders, and stressed that any use of force provoking provocation or violence will be met with strict responses. So what's the context? Nnamdi Kanu is the leader of the indigenous peoples of Biafra, IPOB. He has been detained for a while, facing charges related to terrorism and treasonable felony. Many of his supporters argue his continued detention despite favorable court rulings is a violation of justice and the rule of law. The protest has gained support from traditional rulers, religious leaders and political figures from the Igbo community who argue that Kanu's incarceration has wider implications for peace in the southeast and justice in Nigeria as a whole. At the same time, there are opposing voices. Some northern groups and others argue that the protest is provocative, that it undermines sovereignty, and that the courts should be allowed to play their role without street pressure. Now, what did Sowore specifically say? In his statement he warned the police and security agencies, do not injure Nigerians who choose to march peacefully. He stressed that the protest is non-negotiable in his view, no going back. At the same time, he emphasized the need for the protest to stay peaceful. The argument is, if the state says everyone is equal under the law and court orders must be obeyed, then the release of Kanu must be heeded. Otherwise the logic is, selective justice weakens the system. What are the risks and what to watch out for? When protests of this kind are organized, there is always the risk of infiltration by troublemakers. Even if the organizers stress peaceful conduct, there is potential for escalation. The police have already reminded citizens of potential punitive measures and court orders restraining protests in certain zones. If the protest takes place in a restricted zone, it could lead to confrontation. The narrative is larger than just one person. It taps into issues of marginalization, rule of law, regional grievances. So what begins as a protest could shift into broader demands or conflicts. The government's response is also important, how they treat protesters, whether they heed the demands, whether they engage in dialogue, or resort to force will shape national perception and possible fallout. Why is this relevant for everyone, not just one region? While the focus may appear to center on the southeast and the Igbo region, the protest and its demands speak to universal issues in Nigeria. Are court judgments being followed by the state? Is justice applied equally across the country? Does the citizen have the right to protest peacefully when they feel injustice has been done? How do regional tensions, ethnic identity, and national unity interplay when these questions emerge? Sowore and his supporters are framing this as a national project rather than a purely regional one. The idea is, if one part of the country feels justice is denied, then all Nigerians are concerned. So, what should viewers keep an eye on? Where exactly the protest will take place, date, time, key locations. It has been mentioned that October 20th is a proposed date. The behavior of security agencies, will they allow it, restrict certain zones, or enforce court orders? The message from the government, will there be a response to the demand for Kanu's release, or will the state hold firm? Any escalation, from peaceful march to confrontation, and how that is handled. The wider ripple effects, other groups may join, or this could spark further protests demanding justice elsewhere. Let's wrap up with what this could mean for Nigeria moving forward. If the protest happens and remains peaceful, and if the government listens, then we could see a boost in citizens' faith in democratic processes and the rule of law. It could act as a signal that Nigerians can mobilize for justice, and the government must respond. Conversely, if the protest turns violent, or is met with heavy-handed force, then it could deepen regional divides, fuel resentment, and damage Nigeria's image of free speech and rights of assembly. It might set a precedent for how future protests are handled. Thus, this moment is significant. Whether you are directly involved or watching from afar, The way this plays out will matter for governance, justice, and national cohesion. Thanks for staying with me this far. Don't forget, like this video, subscribe, and share it with friends so we can keep these discussions going. I keep you posted as more details emerge. If you want, I can pull together an update tomorrow after the protest. Let me know in the comments.